Hey everyone, Grayson the Bard here, and welcome back to day 128 of the Hunt a Day. And just like that, 29 days remain. I forgot to make a big deal out of it yesterday that we were at 30, so I'm gonna make a big deal out of it today. We are less than a month away from Monster Hunter Wilds. Whoo, baby. And I'm going to be taking a slight break from Monster Hunter World to go back into Monster Hunter Generations and tackle some other monsters who I wanted to make sure that I talked about, who weren't in either World or Rise, who I think have a good chance of coming back, who I would love to see back. And we are starting that off by fighting Zamtrios today. And I know I just said that I was going to be doing this for a couple days, but today my Switch started making a sound from I'm assuming the fan that sounded like the wails of the damned, and my Pro Controller has decided to finally succumb to the curse of Joy-Con drift, or I guess Nintendo controller drift. As you'll see a couple of times throughout this fight, the camera just starts spinning out of control. So that was fun to deal with. So who knows? If my Switch explodes, I will not be doing any more hunts in Generations or Rise, and it will be exclusively World and Frontier for the last month. Yay! But until the inevitable death knell of my Switch, I am going to continue to go back into Generations and play as many cool monsters that I can. And I am so excited to show off Zamtrios today. If you played Monster Hunter Rise and hadn't played any of the previous games, maybe you started with World, maybe you just weren't interested in any of the games on the 3DS, this is what you missed out on with the fact that Capcom decided to put Zamites in Monster Hunter Rise, the little baby sharks, but did not put their dad, Zamtrios, into the game. Zamtrios is the adult version of the Zamites who showed up in Monster Hunter Rise, and it was introduced in Monster Hunter 4. And from the first time I fought Zamtrios back on the 3DS when I was still in college, I absolutely loved him. I thought he was a really cool monster, even if, looking back on it now, today, he sometimes has a bit much going on. But I think it all blends together really well and creates a very fun, badass, cohesive monster. Getting into it, Zamtrios effectively has 3 phases. He has his first phase that you saw at the start of the fight, where he looks like a big, walking, great white shark. He swaps you with his tail, he charges at you with his big, hungry maw, and he breathes out beams of concentrated ice energy, and that's about it. Then when he gets enraged, he grows this ice armor. He freezes the air around him into this spiky ice armor that has this really cool, edgy looking silhouette that looks like it would be right at home in Monster Hunter Frontier. And it's one of the reasons that I don't particularly subscribe anymore to the mentality that Monster Hunter Frontier monsters are over-designed. Some of them, yes, but I mean, come on, Zamtrios fits right in. And I'm going to hold off on talking about Phase 3 for a little bit so that hopefully the recording can catch up with it, so that you see it happen before I spoil it. If this is your first time seeing Zamtrios, the fight is, I don't want to say easy, but it is relatively easy to read. His attacks are very well telegraphed. There are a couple moves he does, in particular his big full body spin move. In G rank, he pairs that with his frost beam, which screws up your spacing a little bit if you're not seeing it coming. And then also one of his charges where there is a very, very big opening that if you know the timing for it, you can get in and you can do a lot of damage. Or you can also use that time to get out of the way, because that attack is going to do a lot of damage. In Monster Hunter 4, I remember thinking that Zamtrios was, because you fight it relatively early in Monster Hunter 4. Not quite, it's a step below the Rathalos Diablos, that speed of monster level. So it's kind of like a late mid-game monster. And I felt like it was there to really teach you how to take advantage of openings regardless of size. And how to figure out, okay, is this something I can get in and do damage on, or is it something I need to avoid? And I think Zamtrios does that really well. It's one of the core strengths of his fight, besides really leaning into the big, cool, angry shark angle. Of the 3 main shark monsters in Monster Hunter, you've got Zamtrios, you've got Beatotus, and you've got Anora Patisu. I think Zamtrios is definitely my favorite. Honora Patisu from Frontier is knocking on it, and then Beatotus is Beatotus. Beatotus is fine. But what really makes Zamtrios special, if it just had those two forms, it'd be fine. It'd be a good monster. It'd be great. It'd be a lot of fun. But then at about the midway point of the fight, he balloons up. I remember looking up the biological reason for why this works, but he's kind of like a pufferfish. He takes in frozen air and water and enters what I call balloon form, because I learned this on accident. The one thing you don't want to Google is Zamtrios inflation. But yeah, he enters balloon form, and his attacks completely change. He gets an entirely new moveset, an entirely new move pattern. He attempts to like roll around like a ball and crush you. He will jump into the air and slam back into the ground, trying to one, smack into you, and two, create tremors that can just like knock your hunter off balance for a little bit. And then in place of his usual ice beams, he will spew like a mortar geyser of frozen ice into the air and attempt to like rain it down on you. And the fact that Zamtrios has not just the 3 distinct phases, but also like 2 very different movesets in those phases really sets it apart from a lot of other monsters. When a lot of monsters go enraged and they get a new form and they get a couple new moves and they get a little faster and they get a little more aggressive, and it's good. That's not a bad thing. I'm not, saying anything like that. But when a monster gets an entirely new moveset midway through the fight, it just makes you do that lean into the console moment where it's like, okay, I need to lock back in. I need to focus. I got to figure out what this thing can do. And I just remember the first time I fought Zamtrios, I was blown away by the fact that they did that. And I still really like it to this day, even when I know it's coming. It's been a very long time since I fought Zamtrios. I don't play Generations a lot. I still really like it. I like a lot of the monsters. It's been even longer since I played 4 Ultimate. I remembered the balloon form, but in the moment when I was fighting Zamtrios, it still caught me off guard and it still took me by surprise, because so much of the fight went along where it was the normal form and the ice armor that even though I the second it happened, I was like, oh, right, balloon form. But during those early parts of the fight, I completely forgot about it. And I feel like Zamtrios does a great job of making that surprise happen. And I would love to see it do so in a more modern game. And I think Zamtrios is going to be back. I think Zamtrios has a very high chance of being in Monster Hunter Wilds. And a couple reasons. One, it has skipped a lot of games. It has not been in any of the 5th generation games. Its children were in Rise, and people saw that and were excited for Zamtrios to come back. And then when it didn't show up in Sunbreak, people were upset about that. And we know that Capcom has eyes on the community. We know they're looking at feedback, and we know they're looking at what people want. So I think Zamtrios has a very high chance of making it in. I'm going to say, for a chance of making it into Monster Hunter Wilds, I'm going to give it a 8 out of 10. The only thing that has me hesitant is, again, I don't know if there's going to be a snow-specific biome. I feel like there has to be, because every Monster Hunter game has the forest, the desert, the tundra-y area, and the hot area. Sometimes those are combined into one, sometimes they are separate areas, but you can't have a Monster Hunter game without ice monsters and a place for those ice monsters to live. And I choose to believe that Zamtrios is going to make an appearance, 8 out of 10, and then because of that, 10 out of 10 for showing up in a future Monster Hunter game. Before I wrap up the ramble for today, in addition to the technical issues my Switch is having now, I made some big ol' dumb mistakes during this hunt. The last time I played Generations was when I fought a Cantor. And I did not remember to restock my items before I left for this hunt, so I had no paintballs to track the Zamtrios with, no whetstones to sharpen my sword, which loses sharpness very quickly with this build, and not the max amount of potions that I felt like I needed. So towards the end of the hunt, I go back to camp to restock my items, and I didn't realize that Zamtrios was very close to death. So you will get to see me kind of make a cut there, because I just Kind of wanted to cut out me going back to the camp and fighting with the drift on my analog stick to restock items, just for the fight to end very quickly after. But thank you all so much for watching. Please stick around until the end of the hunt if you can. Like, comment, and subscribe if you want to. Don't if you don't. And until next time, I'll see you next time.